Alright, welcome everyone to the Chaz interview. My name is Coolnet 560, and with us we got the Chaz, and we got Nema here, N-E-M-A, not the two E's, the one E. Would you guys like to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, for this interview, we will be talking about Thereians only. For those who sent in about Real Life Plus, I am sorry we won't be able to do that, but if you go to reallifeplus.com and check out when the next webisode is, you can ask Chaz any question you like, or just post them in the forums, and he'll be able to answer your questions. Alright, so here we go. The first question is, Chaz, tell me about your background in there. What did you do for there.com?
Well, I actually joined there in 2003. A friend of mine had told me about it and said that I would enjoy it, and I came in December. It was early December of 2003, and yeah, I enjoyed it right away, and I became part of the developer program. I tried making, I think I made a shirt first, and I started making a few things, met a bunch of people that way. Went to a gathering, real life gathering that was held in Santa Maria, California. Met some people there. I met some of the staff. Let's see, who was there at the time? There was Vash, Baloo, Jack, and Kirsten. I believe those were the four that had gone to the Santa Maria gathering from the staff. And somewhere along the way, I ended up getting a job there. I started out working in ops for a while, and then transitioned over to focusing on the developer program and building that out. So for most of the times, I was kind of straddling between engineering and art as far as supporting the developer program.
Nice. Nice. When you got the job in McKenna, like, how did that all happen? Like, what did they do when they asked you?
Well, I had interviewed for an ops position, and so I met a bunch of the ops staff, went to lunch with them, kind of your standard interview, and came on as part of the ops team. At that time, it was a pretty small ops team, so everybody was really busy.
That's nice. That's nice. It was great that you became the developer engineer, and your work was awesome.
Thank you.
So my next question is, what was it like working with the community team?
Well, all of the different groups, it was a small company, so it was a pretty tight-knit group. Where I was, I pretty much got to work with all the different groups. The developer program required just about every area. So, community, finding out what people wanted, having the the developer chats, coming up with things to give away at events. I worked a lot with the marketing to come up with ways to promote the items that were being done with the developer program. The developer program also covered a lot of the internal developers as well. So I got to work with like Tabletronics, who came on to do a lot of the social games, the card tables and such. And also some of the art houses that we were working with, for some of the partnerships. Got to work with the business development people to come up with ideas, for partnership type items, developer submissions, customer support. I got to work with just about every group, and it was a really good group to work with.
Awesome, awesome. What was it like working with Tabletronics?
Oh, he was really clever. He of course came from the community as well, and before he even came on board as staff, he was creating all of those items for their community. The maps, he had expanded on the Compass editions. So he was doing a lot then, and then when he came on to work on the card tables, it worked out really well. Me, Pixel, and Tabletronics, kind of got a lot of momentum building out the card tables in addition to all the other things we were doing at the time.
Yeah, those cards tables were a big handy. My favorite actually was the crack game. I thought that was pretty funny how he developed that with the egg popping out.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one. I kind of wish it had been out for a little longer and we got to finish it off, but I was glad that at least it did make it out there.
Yeah.
That was a great game. It was a great game. It was a lot of fun. What little time I had to play it.
Yeah, it was kind of neat to because originally, it was pretty structured on how the cards were, and it was kind of nice that we were able to go into card games that involved chips and non-card games that were more the word based. So it was kind of exciting to get in there and expand. It was a fun project.
Yeah. I was just wondering, since we're talking about the cards game, I know I didn't mention this earlier, but do you know what else he was developing, like, besides the crack game? Like, was there anything else that you put to the side before that he was also developing?
Well, that was the last project. We didn't get to completely finish it. We had just made it out there, but we were still finishing some other stuff. So we hadn't moved on to the next game yet.
I see. Okay. My next question is, how was Tropical Adventures created?
That was something I actually did before I had started working there. In between, moving. When I first moved out to California, I had kind of had the idea of working on amusement park. I had done before the new developer specs had come out. I had kind of worked on a kind of a cheaper version of the Ferris wheel, and I always wanted to do something that was a little bit more refined. So I spent quite a bit of time working on the textures and everything, and at the time when I first did I think I did the Ferris wheel, and then I did which one did I do second? I forget which one I did second, but maybe it was the pirate ship, or maybe it was a spinning tilt, whichever one. They weren't animated when they first came in, so I had to make them out of couches and structure builders, kind of like everybody else was doing. And when I first did the Ferris wheel, we didn't even have the nudge tool at that point, so I just remember I think that was one of the reasons I made that little tool for being able to edit the layouts, because the Ferris wheel was kind of intense to put together with individual seats, and the wheel and the base were separate pieces. So from there it just kind of made sense. We were working in the background on interactivity and things like that. So I figured out how to do the animation, and talk to Mike about releasing it, and from there it got released in its own separate little area.
Yeah, I thought the Tropical Adventure was actually awesome. I think my favorite part was definitely the Ferris wheel, because when you went on it, you know what I mean, it was like you could see the whole island, and I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was a fun project. Dietrich had actually made a bunch of the. She made that little tiki man that you saw. She also made the Tropical Adventures logo that was at the entrance. And Zach C. volunteered his time to make the bumper cars. The textures for the bumper cars. He painted the models that I made.
Wow, that's awesome. I was wondering, for the Tropical Adventures, where did you get the parrots named Cats, and I forgot the other name. Like, how did you develop that name?
Well, that was kind of a joke on the whole. You know, for the longest time, people were demanding hugs, and they were developing or demanding cats. In fact, I had my own little demand cats group.
Cats and hugs.
So we eventually did get hugs, but you know, at the time Tropical Adventures came, hugs were still in demand. So I just kind of, as a funny, called them Hugs and Cats.
That's great.
There was also the other thing that was in there. There was a little building permit that appeared. I think a few weeks before Tropical Adventures came in. It was just this blank island, and there was a building permit on site, and if you read it really closely, you could see Tropical Adventures in the building permit, and a few people picked up on it. It was kind of meant to be a little Easter egg for people to find. There was also one of the little which one ended up in there?
The chicken?
I think either a tiki, one of those little tiki dolls, or the little garden gnome. One of those ended up in kind of the back of. I think it was in back of the bumper car area. It was there was a palm tree, and in the back of the palm tree was one of those classic Easter eggs. It was either the tiki man or the garden gnome.
Yeah. What was it? The Tropical Adventures. What was the chicken all about? Like what was that whole idea about it?
Well, kind of the same token as demanding hugs and demanding cats. There was this whole kind of joke going on in there about demanding chickens. So the team that originally worked on there had wanted to make this rideable chicken, and the art staff had basically created the model, and I think they were trying to basically make a rideable chicken that was sort of one of the things that you'd be able to do in there. They never got to do it, and it ended up being there was one of those monkey ruin temples that had inside of it kind of another Easter egg that you could find that was it had a little sign that was kind of demand chickens, and then there was the shrine to Clucky. So that chicken theme kind of came up a lot. So when I was thinking about doing a merry-go-round, horses, of course, is the natural thing to do with a merry-go-round, but the more appropriate thing to do for there seemed to be the rideable chicken. So probably the models for those, and the all the textures and the animations for sitting on the rides.
So now I was wondering, what was your involvement with the DAB, and what was the DAB?
So the DAB, or the DAB as it was called, kind of like the MAB, Developer Advisory Board. So the idea with that was kind of like the MAB, except for developer centric, and it had started while I believe there was still in beta, and it was meant to be. They knew that they wanted to add developer content to the world, but they of course wanted to talk to the developers to find out what the best way of doing that was, and what's the right pricing, and how do they deal with things like minimum coverage. So the DAB was involved with all of that, and towards the tail end, I think I was the second to last person that was added to it, and Tabletronics was actually, I think, the last person that was added to it. And it was decided somewhere, I think, in 2004-ish time, or yeah, probably around there, that either the DAB really needed to be structured more like the MAB as far as kind of a rotation and a meeting structure, or it would make sense to just wrap the whole thing up in the MAB. And the community team talked to the DAB and kind of went over what the different options were, and it was kind of decided that the MAB already had a structure for talking about a lot of different things, so it was decided to just wrap it up in the MAB. Later on, when I was there, we kind of we still wanted to, of course, meet with people. We were using the forums and focus groups and things like that to work on developer items. But there was kind of a large interest in meeting with the developers to find out what should be working on. There was really so many things that could have been added, and a limited amount of people to work on them. So rather than work on stuff that people don't want, try to find out the priorities and how people like them and things like that. So that's kind of where the developer chats started from, and we did those every other month for a few years. They were very helpful, and they were generally well attended. Quite a few developers would show up to those, even when they announced that it was closing. I kind of went as a fellow member to the final developer chat, and it was kind of good just sitting around and I guess reflecting on what had been done.
Yeah, I remember that because I was at the last developer chat meeting. I think it's still on YouTube. I think Francis still has some archives on YouTube from the previous developer chats throughout the years. I'm not sure if they're still up there, but you could definitely check up and see if there is any. So, Chaz, what do you miss about There.com the most?
Well, I mean, I had started as a member, of course, and there was a lot of areas in there that, even though it's virtual space, that to me were actual places. And of course, I had met a lot of people in there, and it's it's a hard thing to match, just because it's not just a bunch of colors on your screen or just random things moving around. It is actual memories and established relationships, things like that. So that's kind of where I was with that, and those experiences you kind of have to look at now as just more of a melancholy thing. It's it's great that it happened and that all those things, and you kind of miss it.
Yeah, it did take a big toll on everyone about it closed. So instead of what you missed the most, what was the best thing about There.com? What did you love about it?
I mean, it's really hard to pinpoint a single thing because there were just a lot of interesting things. I mean, I could go on there and meet other people and talk to other people, or I could just grab a hoverboard and float around on a tear or do laps on a hover bike, or I would go in and play a card game or just stand around talking to other people. So it really was an interesting experience because you could do as much as you wanted, but on the other hand, you didn't really have to. You weren't forced to do anything. So part of it, I guess, is what you make of things. If you got to be willing to open yourself up and invest a little yourself, and then you can meet other people and enjoy their company.
Yeah, it was great seeing you there, and all the other staff members put their hard work into it and made it into probably one of the best virtual worlds out in the market. You know what I mean? You can't compare it to any other virtual world. It's like its own thing. You could try and make a replica of Thereians, but it's impossible. You can't develop a replica there because there are things in there that no other virtual world could ever replicate it.
Right. Yeah. It's a unique experience.
Yeah.
Right. It sure is.
So now, since I asked all my questions, now I went on Facebook and Thumbnar.com forums, and I told everyone to ask the Chaz some questions. And before, of course, I released them, I made sure I went over with Chaz and make sure they are all approved. Some of you guys did mention about Real Life Plus. I understand you want to ask him about that. It's better off if you ask him in the forums or wait for the webisode and see what happens. So if you want to ask him in the forums, go to reallifeplus.com and register. It's free, and you'll see all the neat stuff there, and it's awesome. Alright, so here are the questions that I have. The first question is from Francis7, and he asks, tell about how you implemented props in there.com. Who worked on those? How was it developed and implemented? What would you change about the props if you could?
So I worked on the props, and of course, I got support from the product submissions group. Sonny was a great person to work with, so he helped as far as testing out what needed to be done from submissions. Props were, one of those heavily requested things, and we kind of knew that we wanted to do them. We had drinks in there, but there was the need to have something that was a little more flexible as far as attachments go. The drinks were hand-based object, and something that, of course, wouldn't disappear after a certain amount of sips. So there were a lot of partner requests for props, and of course developer requests. So props came out as a developer item, and as usual, the developers were very creative on how they used them, and we ended up with just about anything that you could imagine that. From there was the mannequin that you could bring as a prom date. There was the booth that you could walk around in, rain clouds and funny glasses, and just about anything you could imagine. That the developers were very creative of it.
Yeah.
If there was more time, I think it would have been interesting to. Samson did a really neat parts implementation, so it would have been kind of neat to maybe integrate the two, so that way you could mix and match props together. That would have been neat, but I'm just glad it got released and was able to be used.
Yeah, the props I thought was great, and Francis said he worked on it with outstanding. You'd be seeing his work. It was just unbelievable. what I was very curious about is for the drinks. Now, were the designs for the drinks, the props to make the drinks, were they ever released to the public? I don't believe they were, and if they weren't, how come the members weren't able to design the drinks?
The drinks it was just a matter of time. The drinks hadn't gotten released. The props were more flexible as far as you could attach them to different body areas, and you could have multiple pieces to them. So you had the large snowmen that were kind of animated with the avatars and things like that. The drinks were really set up to be a drink. There was some additional flexibility that was added as we went along, but it hadn't kind of rolled to the top as a priority as a developer item. The interactivity at that point was kind of a higher request.
Yeah. I remember during their games, somehow the flaming torch that we were using for their games, for the posters, the torches you were able to drink them. I thought that was pretty funny. I heard that was like a small glitch.
Well, that was the original torches were based on the drink, just because it was a handheld item. So, I mean, that's kind of where the need came from. Is that the torch was kind of the customized drink, but we needed a solution that was a little more flexible than that.
I see. So the other question is that Francis 7 asks is, whatever happened to the large folder group scene project that was originally to come before the props? Then it was to come after, then it sort of dropped.
Yeah, it was just, as far as what, you have to prioritize things, so it just never really got enough priority. I think, there was a lot of interest in doing the interactivity, so if it was, and the interactivity was kind of one of those projects that required a lot of attention. All those new card games and the word game and a lot of the items that were being used were the welcome walkway and things like that were all based on the new interactive framework, and we finally had gotten that out to the developers as well. But the interactive framework was a long-term project. It took a lot of time to implement and change a lot of the ways that the system was designed. So it just required attention, and even spending some time on a smaller project to get it done. All those little projects add up. So it was just decided to focus the attention on getting that larger project done.
I see. Okay. So another question is from Thumbdar. Thumbdar has a question for you. He said, "Hey Chaz, do you still wear that groovy orange shirt?"
I think you already have the answer to that question.
Yes, absolutely.
Everybody needs their trademark, right? Francis can have his, I can have mine.
Exactly. Do you wear your groovy orange shirt in work when you go to your office?
Every once in a while, yeah. I wear a shirt that kind of looks like that.
Awesome. What you should do, this is what you should do. You should put it on the what's it called, the Real Life Plus store, the clothing store, and have people buy your shirts.
Oh.
Yeah, I had a whole series of the Chaz. I had the evil Chaz. I had a few of them. They all had the shirt.
Alright, so here's another question. This one's from Babs. She wrote, "When did you find out about the end of the world?"
I pretty much found out the same day everybody else found out.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's hard.
sad. That was sad.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me get the other question. All right, this one is from Lionheart. He, I think it's a he, wrote, will a buggy physics of there.com be done again in another virtual world, or was it just a one-off for there.com?
Well, I mean, the there.com software was written, back in, they started in, 1999? And a lot of, everything at that time, there weren't really the concept of engines, that the engines that were out there, basically did one thing well and didn't do another area well. So if they did networking, then the graphics weren't so good, So at that point, it was kind of decided to write the software from scratch. So their software was, custom code all around. They wrote the networking code, the graphics code, the physics code. So, how the buggies operated, of course, they spent a lot of time and attention, making it work well. Other people could probably speak about the actual implementation, but I mean, they use the whole, what is it, the squash and stretch type animations as a basis of how they did there, and based the buggies off of that. So it was just really well done, really thought out. Could somebody else do a good vehicle implementation? I'm sure that nowadays I think a lot of companies have the benefit that there are a lot of good engines out there, and there's a lot of physics implementations that are available. So I think it's certainly possible to do something that's as good or better. It's just a matter of if they're willing to put the time into it.
Yeah. Another of his question was there.com a social experiment?
Well, I think it was a social experiment as far as Will Harvey had a certain idea in his mind about what a experience like that could be. At the time, there was more gameplay based MMOs, and the whole idea of a social experience was kind of new, and there came out, Second Life came out. They kind of both did different ways of implementing it. Second Life was more designed around developing and building, and there was designed more around socialization and exploring. Since then, I think there's been a lot of lessons learned, and other people have tried it, and some of them have given up pretty quickly. If you remember, like Google Lively, I don't think that even made it past beta. So there's a bunch of ones that started to do it. Some of them are just at the beginning stages. But like anything else, I mean, it takes a while before something, you have to hit just that right time. I mean, if you remember, like Friendster, they're still out there, but then you see like something like Facebook, and Facebook just hit it at the right time and became really big. So, somebody's going to do it at some point. It's just kind of a matter of timing, people having the right hardware, the infrastructure being there, and as a world being kind of open to that kind of experience.
Yeah. Google the Lively Google thing. They stopped developing it once and for all on January 1st, 2009. So it was a year old, not even. You know what I mean? It didn't last very long at all.
No.
But I think the problem is now if people are going to start to develop a virtual world, I think it's going to be very hard than it was back in 1997, because back then the internet wasn't very popular, and if you were going to develop a virtual world, you're not going to see a whole lot of people coming in like There.com did and Second Life did, because they developed it very early, you know what I mean, in the early 90s. So it's going to be very hard for a virtual community to be very excellent and, you know what I mean, get enough profits for it to run very well, because I know that, what was it called? A virtual world closed right after There did. I don't know the name of it, but that wasn't out very long either.
It wasn't Vividi, was it?
Yeah, I think it was Vividi, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the economy and where things are right now. I think, the virtual world, you still mention virtual world people, and they kind of look at you like you're crazy. I know even I went back home and I met with some people I had gone to school with, and I was talking about like even saying Avatar, and people were like, Avatar, I saw that in a movie, it's a blue thing. So it hasn't gotten to the point of like instant messaging or email or the telephone, where
or BBM.
if you remember back, when email first came out, you were kind of a certain type of person to have an email address, or you need it for your work if they really need to be connected. And nowadays it's like, how many emails do you have, and kids are probably growing up with having an email address. It's an automatic thing. People ask, what's your Facebook address, as if that's something that just everybody has, so it takes quite a time before something is accepted enough that it becomes mainstream. And virtual worlds are growing, and they've gotten more acceptance in the years. Back in 2003, people didn't even know what a virtual world was.
Neither did I.
And now they know what it is, but they're still like, well, I'm probably going to meet crazy people, so I don't want to do that. You can't tell who you're going to meet online, and I've heard all kinds of horror stories, and if you remember the whole Dr. Phil interview where it was like it's going to corrupt teenage girls, and and then
we had
of course
an influx of people at that time.
Of course he had no problem the same people watching his television show all day, but
right.
Would you really have a problem with your kids, sitting at home on the computer versus, hanging out with a gang or something like that? But it hasn't gotten acceptance, in the mainstream yet. So I think it's still in the process, and it's going to take time before it's an accepted thing. If you look at it, the generation that that's kind of making their way out there now, they're in a real sharing mode. They everybody tweets when they first wake up in the morning. They're writing on every social networking site where they that they're brushing their teeth and getting ready for school, and there's this whole sharing thing that I know my generation didn't have. So the world does change.
The kids are using a lot of text
Yeah.
on telephones now.
everybody's always got to be connected, and you're just instantly sharing with everybody what you're doing. It's a very different world.
It's not unusual to go out to dinner or lunch with a group of people and find 5 or 6 cell phones sitting on a table. It's just the norm. People even bring their computers out.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, most cafes have wireless, and a lot of if you're in the airport, there's wireless, or there's a terminal where you can check your email. So people have accepted the internet as far as a medium and a way of connecting. They've accepted email address. Facebook has done a really good job of getting it out to people that otherwise wouldn't have gotten into a site like that. So you find families on there, and it has just become accessible enough for people to do that sort of thing. Whereas the virtual world experience, there's going to be a time, but it's still just getting there.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. My laptop died on me, so I was not sure if you heard me or not. What's interesting is with the Dr. Phil, when many members kept on talking about it, I personally felt like that he shouldn't be judging about the virtual world, that it could be very addictive, which that is true, but it depends on the person, whether or not, if that person wants to be addicted or not. You know what I mean? You can't judge a book by its cover. You know what I mean? You gotta tell yourself whether or not do you want to be addicted or not. You can stop yourself becoming addicted to a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was dramatized for TV. I think it was put on at the same time. It was that teenage girl who and her mom was losing her to a virtual world, and that was put on at the same time as street racing. So kind of different levels, but of course it was dramatized as it was addictive and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, it's exactly that. If you do anything to excess, it's generally a bad thing. It was kind of dramatized for TV. It ended up being great advertising because most people that were looking at it said, "Ooh, well, if it's so addicting, I should try it." And of course, Michael Wilson had actually gone there, and they made a clip and everything. So it ended up looking good for us because we were at the time promoting a good family kind of centric environment and all that, and then kind of the message was that and if a parent had called the company would have shut down anybody that was 18 or younger if the parents requested it. So I mean, it ended up turning out well. It was just kind of it was dramatized as TV shows usually are. I think his message was turn off the computer and sit and watch time TV.
Or turn off the computer and watch the Dr. Phil show.
Exactly. Yeah. That's much better for you.
Exactly. I was wondering for the Dr. Phil, if you were face to face with him, what would you say to him about the virtual world and about the.com?
I probably wouldn't. I mean, I don't even know if they were his views. I mean, it was, like I said, just dramatized TV. He was saying what was required to get the show, to be interesting. But I mean, if you take virtual world and you actually use it and you compare it to, I think it was like street racing. I think that's what the other topic of that day was. I don't know exactly how the two compare.
Yeah. So let's continue because I think we're probably losing time soon. So this question is from Corbin Correjo. Of course, we all know Corbin. He was a former island guy. He asks, which reasons do you think led to the eventual collapse of There.com?
Well, I mean, the actual details of what happened, I can only speculate on. I mean, the economy certainly didn't help, and I already kind of talked about where the virtual world is as a whole, at least at that time. But I guess you have to look at it like it was opened in 2003 and closed in 2010. As far as the service goes, I mean, that's pretty good. I think all of us would have liked it to be around until we weren't around anymore. But I don't know that that space had the momentum at that time to stay around that long. I mean, it's good that Second Life is still sticking around, and that space itself, the virtual world, that people are still trying to make it work, but as we were talking about, that's going to take some time, and I'm There.com will always be one of those foundation builders.
I think it's interesting to know how many things have arrived from There.com and moved to virtual worlds too. There are a lot of different things like Papa Spades and Gin Stars, and a lot of the same people doing the same things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the lessons learned that came out of that type of thing. Those are still going to be around, and I think when it first came out, I guess great social experiment is probably a good way of looking at it. I think Will Harvey had said in an interview, he didn't even know if people would be willing to spend money on a thing like that. Spend money on virtual clothes and virtual cars. So it was kind of a gamble that could that system work, and they kind of demonstrated that it could. Second Life has demonstrated that you can sell virtual land, and so those kinds of things are still around. The specific implementation isn't around, but I guess you move on.
It's like what you said before about taking a chance. It's like, let's say, for the person that developed the computer system, do you think it's worth it to bring it out to the public, or you think it's too early? You know what I mean? Sometimes you gotta take a chance on whatever you develop, either it's a virtual world or anything. Sometimes you gotta take a chance, and if it goes downhill, you know what I mean, at least you took it as a try and not just guessing it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you always look at some end product or service or infrastructure, and you have to kind of look at all those things that kind of were the foundation to it. It takes a lot of attempts and a lot of tries, and each of those tries costs people's time and money and everything, and eventually you get to something, but there's a whole history there.
Yeah. Another thing that Corbin asked, he said, what aspects or events did you favor in the overall community? Like, for example, buggy racing, their games, paths, building, etc.
Well, I really enjoyed I used to just wander around on a hoverboard, or I'd go and lap on a hover bike and just kind of do that for a bit and unwind. Their games I thought was really clever. The whole idea of using the name tag color as a way of creating the teams. What was interesting about that I really thought was clever was it forced people to get out of their own social circles. So you couldn't choose your teammates, which generally if you're going to choose who's going to be on your team, you're going to go with your friends. And this forced you to actually meet other people, but the name tag was an automatic. Hey, I'm part of your team. I share your name tag. Therefore, we're part of a circle. So, and there was of course the competition element where you could immediately bond with people that you didn't know because you were trying to win against other colors. I thought that was brilliant, and the fact that a lot of events were actually run by the community. It was all around a really well done thing.
I was curious about is that how were the name tag colors developed? Like, how did it know? Let's say Nemo was olive and Chaz was gray and I was brown. Like, how was that all developed?
It was based off your when you registered, you just kind of got a random color.
I see. Another question is from T-Bones, and he asks, with all that has happened in the last few months, do you think Michael Wilson or McKenna, for that matter, will have anything to do with the virtual world? Now, don't forget, this is all speculation, and that we don't really have a direct answer for this, really.
Yeah, I don't have any information as far as that. I kind of ended my day with back in March, so I have just as much information as everybody else does.
Yeah.
Have to move on.
Yeah.
Personally, I took that last week as kind of I was logged in there pretty much from the morning to the night. I kind of took that week as the as kind of a closure period. Went around, took plenty of screenshots. Got to see a lot of people that hadn't necessarily been in for a while, or for whatever reason just hadn't bumped into. So I think I did like a lot of other people did, and used that last week as a kind of a closure period. So I'm kind of glad that the plug didn't just get yanked when they told us. But I think I was with a lot of other people on how that was handled.
Yeah, I think we should all something that's really interesting is that people are like to us that we should all be pissed off at Michael Wilson that they're closed. But if you think about it, we should be at least grateful that we had at least a week to see everything one more time, take pictures with your friends, talk with them once more, get in contact with them, and not to go overboard and be like, let's all go get pitchforks and torches at Michael Wilson's office, At least, Well,
it's kind of what we were talking about with the, the whole Dr. Phil episode. You want anything that's part of your life to be, a healthy thing. So, at this point in time, it was announced that it's closed. So, I mean, you can speculate all you want, but I mean, that's not going to change where it is right now. And as I've been through, this isn't the first time I was laid off. I was laid off, for a job that I was at. I had started at, when I was a kid and had been there for, like something like 15 years, and, the place got bought out and they closed. And, things like that, when something closes, when you move, when, something changes in your life, you kind of have to get to a point where you just have to accept it, and, just hanging on to it or trying to live off of hope of something changing to the contrary, you never really want it to be an unhealthy thing. So, you kind of just have to accept it where it is, and just kind of go with that. I mean, there's other venues, people, may argue whether they're, better or worse, but, there's still other ways to keep in contact with people, and there's still other ways to meet friends and things like that. So there's not going to be a tier, and there's not going to be a Coolnet Plaza, but, you can get, some of those things elsewhere.
Yeah, I think, something I think I'm sort of, I'm very upset that it closed, but I'm actually sort of happy that it did close, because it got me to the point where I get to see other virtual worlds out there, just besides There.com. I think if There.com was still open, I wouldn't see all these other virtual worlds. Like, I heard about Second Life, you know what I mean? I heard about them. It wasn't so obvious about them, but, like Blue Mars, for example, or Onverse, or Geneva, or, Frenzo, and those things. But, here is another question, from, Salty Silver. Hey, you two stop fighting, Francis and Nima. Stop it. I'll kick you both out. Alright. You do that on a separate time, okay? Not during my time. I'm sorry. I know you guys...
Sorry. 3 minutes. Oh my goodness. Well, you better talk fast, Mr.
Exactly.
Coolnet.
Oh no. Alright, so let's do this fast. This one's from Salty Silver. She wrote, what was your favorite place to go enjoying There.com? And Lake777 said, what is the correct spelling of Therian?
Well, I hung out a lot in Dune Valley. There was a lot of good mountains to go hoverboarding on. I also like Tyr a lot. It was just an intriguing place, mysterious. As far as the spelling of Therian, I think Thereians actually created the word, so whatever spelling we want it to be.
Yeah, I spell it Thereian. Some people spell it with just one E.
Yeah.
But
I think either one works.
Yeah. Alright guys, I think that's it because we're probably running out of film, so I would like to thank Francis Seven for definitely coming by, taking his time with his busy schedule and doing this interview, and I'd like to thank Nima with one E, not two E's, for coming and supporting this interview. And
thank you for inviting me.
No problem, anytime. And I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and hopefully I will get another interview with someone else soon, and stay tuned for the next interview. Take care, everyone.